All right, we have a quorum now. Motion to open the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're open. Folks who are on at home, thank you for joining us, and I appreciate your interest in the public affairs of the village. If you need to say anything during any public comment period, raise your hand, and our friendly staff will make sure you have an opportunity to be heard. The first item up on our published agenda is 139 East Prospect. Unfortunately,
excuse me, Mr. Chair, just before you get into that, would you mind just for the record just stating who's present in terms of the quorum?
Sure. We have the chair, Vice Chair Andrew Maggio. We have Commissioner Hain, Commissioner Neufeld, and Commissioner O'Rourke. We have not yet been joined by. Oh, there we go. And we have Doreen. Good evening, Doreen. So we have Commissioner Roney with us. We are at least temporarily without Commissioner Gelber, and we have several members of staff, our counsel, Christy Mason, Ashley Lay, and our new planner, whose name I will get. I'm sorry. And we have Betty Ann, and we have several folks for an applicant. Unfortunately, so what we don't have is a quorum to hear 139. There are several commissioners who are recused from this. We have matters to discuss this evening, but we will have to have Commissioner Gelber with us in order to have 4, so that we have a quorum so that we can discuss it. I realize this is an inconvenience, and we did not know that this issue would arise, or we would have structured the agenda around it until very recently. Sorry, Mr. Joffrey. We have procedural irregularities follow us like a cloud. What can I say? With that in mind, I'm going to move to put 1165 Grecian ahead on the agenda so we can deal with that, and we don't have to deal with recusals now. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Okay, we're going to take Grecian first, and again, I'm sorry for the inconvenience. Ms. Motel, this is yours now? You're still on mute.
Yes. All right. I think I just got permission to speak. Can everyone hear me?
You did. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. Kristen Motel with the law firm Cuddy and Fader, here for the applicants, Bill and Elizabeth Fedina for 1165 Grecian Point. With me tonight also, besides Bill and Elizabeth, who are joining us, is Rich Cordone from JMC and Mike Nowicki from Ecological Solutions. He's the wetland consultant on this matter. So we're here before you in connection with pending wetlands permit, site plan, and floodplain variance applications that are before the planning board. And we were last before you on May 20th, and since that time, the applicant, as you probably noticed from our July 1st supplemental submission, did a lot of homework and they did a lot of work. So we're back before you tonight. We are seeking consistency review, and I'm just gonna go through a brief summary of the project just to kind of refresh your memory. And then I'll turn it over to Rich, who will walk you through the plans and some of the updates, which include a landscaping plan. So the existing site is already improved with a single family home. It's in a residential zoning district. And we are proposing to demolish that existing home given its state of significant disrepair. And we are proposing to construct a new single family home that is a little bit larger than the existing home, but it's in about the same location. And I do want to point out that the home that we're proposing is completely outside of the actual wetland. It is located within the wetland buffer. But what you'll notice is that the majority of the site is located within that wetland adjacent area. So this is actually a great diagram up on the screen right now. The dotted orange line is the wetland itself. And the green shows you location of the buffer. So you could see the site is significantly constrained. And on top of that, there's a failing septic system. So that is, the applicant's proposing to replace that. And the only location that meets current standards is the location in the front yard. And I'll have Rich walk you through that in more detail, but it constrains the site even more. So where we're proposing to put the new home, the location is pretty set based on those constraints. There is currently no stormwater management at the site, so we're proposing a stormwater management system that's in accordance with the village and state requirements, as well as plantings. So we received a comment memorandum from the environmental consultant, an amended version yesterday afternoon. And you'll note from that that Sven agrees there are no significant environmental impacts here. The project really is proposing to improve the existing conditions on the site, even though the home is a little bit larger than what exists today. And
I have to stop you there a sec, Ms. Motel. You said amended. The one I've got in front of me that I'm looking at is the 7/13/20 Hoger letter.
okay, we have a 714.
Yeah.
Thomas, we have it. We got it via email from Betty Ann today. It has some yellow highlighting on it. Sometime today.
In the press of business, it's possible that I don't know. And I want
13 letter.
Yeah. Okay. I'm looking. I have now up on my screen the revised Hoger letter. What I'm looking at will. Okay. Saying that they're addressing the tree issue. The majority of the trees are being saved.
Yeah, there appears to have been a bit of a misunderstanding with his initial review. So we walked him through the revised plans and explained it to him, and he was much more. At the end of our call yesterday, he felt much better about the project than he did before. So I think he understands what we're doing.
Okay, I'm scanning quickly because I spent some time with this letter and then I had not realized, and that's my mistake. I hadn't realized we had received an updated. So his initial conclusion was that the removal of trees could adversely affect the bird life in the area. And looking at the overhead photograph, it's really obvious why. This lot is the only significant stand of trees in the immediate area that are at all contiguous. There are other trees. This is the only thing that looks like a contiguous canopy anywhere. So let me just put it this way. Is it going to remain true that it will have something like a contiguous tree canopy on the lot?
Yes, it should. This is Mike Nowicki. It should. The only trees that are being proposed to be taken out are for the new septic system.
And there's a couple that are right above where the proposed dwelling is going to be constructed. There's a total of 9 trees that are proposed to be removed now.
Okay, and the Sven's original letter presumed there were 39 being removed, and in fact there were only 9 being removed.
That's correct.
Can I make a point here?
Yeah, go ahead.
So for some reason, if you look at the last plans that were submitted, the tree removal plan from the last set of plans on page 3 is much different from this plan's page 3, as far as the number of trees that are represented on each of those pages.
Rich, at I think this is a good opportunity for you to introduce the amended plans right now, if you want to walk everyone
Yeah.
through so we can all get a good understanding of what's proposed.
Yes. So for starters, the old plans were based off of an older survey that was created. This is a newer survey that was recently done. Was completed at the end of June. That more accurately depicts the quantity of trees on the site. As you can see over here right now, the drawing that are up is the grading and utility drawing. So as you can see, we're able to maintain behind the home a substantial stand of trees over there. It's hard for me to count. It looks like about 15 or 16 trees right behind the home right there that we were able to maintain that previously we had trees to be removed. We also maintained 3 trees alongside the edge of the property that are fairly substantial by utilizing some tree wells, and we shifted the driveway slightly to save 4 larger trees, 4 trees total over there. So you can see over here now I have a couple of hickories over here on the right, and a 32 and a 30-inch oak that we were able to save. Over here on the left side of the screen we have a 24-inch oak, a 16 oak, and another 16-inch oak that we're able to save that we previously had proposed to be removed.
So are you saying that the original plans that were submitted back in May, that survey of the number of trees on the property was incorrect?
That was an older survey. This is a newer survey.
What was the date of the prior survey? And what I'm really getting at is, were some of those trees taken down very recently?
Right, that's my point too.
There are some trees that have been taken down. Let me just try to get the date of the other one. I don't know.
There's quite a few trees that have been taken down.
To answer some of the commissioners' questions, there were trees that were taken down relatively recently. Since my office has been retained on this matter, we've advised the client to cease tree removal operations, and that's happened. So there won't be any more trees removed from this site until we receive the approvals from CZMC and the planning board that we need.
Okay, I'm having trouble following which trees have been removed since the application was filed, since the original application was filed.
A lot have. Compared to the original one to this one, it's a lot different.
I think we'll see, Rich, if you could bring up the previous survey.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Yeah.
If I make you a co-host, you'll be able to share your screen if you have that drawing available.
I'm trying to locate, not necessarily locate that drawing. I'm trying to make this a little bit smaller. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. I apologize. I'm trying to minimize this screen. I apologize for that.
Sure. While Rich is trying to pull that up, Mike, do you want to give a brief introduction to your wetlands assessment, and then we can come back to that if the chairman, if you're okay with that?
Let's hear the wetlands assessment.
Sure. So in September 2018, I was hired to delineate the wetlands on the site, which I did, and then I had the DEC come out and verify the delineation. I believe it was October of that year. She agreed with the delineation. The wetland in the backyard, which is on the site, is a mowed, maintained lawn area. It has been for years. It's been previously impacted. There's some invasive species associated with the water's edge. There's Phragmites, and Japanese knotweed is the other invasive that I found on the site. Some of the vegetation within the lawn, it almost looks like it's just lawn grass. It's really hard to determine because it's never been more than a couple of inches high. I've only been to that site 2 or 3 times, and it's always been in that form. So it has been previously impacted. It probably was old fill when that site was originally developed way back whenever. But now it is part of the DEC tidal wetland. I could go on. Our site is the site, like most of the all of Grecian Point, is adjacent to 3 critical environmental areas: the Hommocks, Hampshire Country Club, and Long Island Sound.
Chairman, if I can share my screen, I have them side by side on my desktop.
That'd be helpful, but can I hold off for just a sec? Because I just want to explore one thing here.
Yep.
It's got essentially lawn grass, but it's not usable as a lawn, right?
No, it's maintained as a lawn, so I imagine sometimes it's very wet, but sometimes it's dry. It's hard to determine. It's hard to predict. Probably during storm events, it's wetter. I've been there and had pictures on a couple of occasions. Once in September 2018, and recently, and the recent pictures, it's relatively dry.
Well, I think it's dry now because we've had really dry weather.
Sure.
When I was back there, though, it was very, very wet, almost like hard to walk across without sinking, up to your ankles.
I do have a question because we're talking about wetlands, and I'm not understanding how the orange line was delineated when the 10-foot contour is the DEC jurisdictional boundary line of where the wetlands begin and end.
The orange line is the village jurisdiction.
Are the way our laws are set up, as well as the coastal management program and the LWRP, the jurisdictional wetland boundary goes along with the jurisdictional boundary of the Department of Environmental Conservation. So that green line is the wetland boundary line.
No, I think that would be the extent of their adjacent area, is the 10-foot contour.
So the 10-foot contour is where the wetlands begins and ends. From the green line to the street is the buffer.
The buffer,
Correct.
100 feet from the wetlands delimitation. So the green line is not the buffer.
I'd like
Trying to move
understand
this up on the screen to see the whole thing. Can that be
I mean,
moved up further?
Maybe as a starting point, is there an explanation that anyone has on why these wouldn't be sort of mirror image shapes of each other, separated by just the distance of wetland versus buffer?
Well, their wetland expert did some work, and that's my question. Why are they different? They shouldn't be different.
It's not. I'm sorry, Doreen. The orange line is indeed what was delineated by the wetland consultant and agreed by the DEC that's what the limit of the wetlands are. That 10-foot contour there is the limit of what the DEC's jurisdiction is. That's the extent of their buffer. So what we're speaking with and working with the DEC is we're working with the DEC to permit activity between the green line and the orange line. We're working with you guys to work between the orange line and that gray line. That's our wetland permit that's the buffer disturbance. That's what we're working with in the village versus the DEC. The DEC has no interest in what we're doing past that green line, upland of that green line, in speaking with them.
It's not real colorful, but it looks like maybe the line we're looking for is the heavy gray line.
That's the 100-foot buffer.
So where is when we're talking about lines, I know where the AE zone is. The flood AE zone on the floodplain is off the property into the street, correct?
That's correct.
There's a VE zone, which is on the street, and then there's an AE zone because they're on the left-hand side.
That's correct.
So we need confirmation from the DEC as to what the 10-foot contour is.
I have that, Doreen. It's an email from Angela Scamizzi. It says the regulated adjacent area at this property will be the road or the 10-foot contour. And then she decided it's the 10-foot contour. We provided her some USGS maps.
Right, did anybody come out in the field? Did she come out?
Yes, yeah, October 2018 with
Did
me.
they compare it with the 1975 wetlands maps? Do we have anything from the
Well,
DEC on this?
The 74 title maps show the wetland along the edge of the water. So this is actually an increase in tidal wetland.
Right, because of various reasons.
Yeah,
You did apply to the
there's
DEC, correct?
That's correct.
Yes.
Included a copy of the joint application form in our supplemental submission.
Right. And they haven't come back and discussed, they haven't come back with a memo yet to us.
That's correct.
I just have two quick comments or questions. First is, as far as the outside of the property going up to the inlet there, I guess it's the northwestern side. When I was there, you really couldn't, you couldn't walk on it without sinking into it. It was passable in a sense, but you were in, I couldn't see taking a lawnmower on that. Maybe when it dries up on certain times, if there's a low tide or something, I don't know. That was, and it was a nice day. I actually saw the people there. But the other thing was, I raised this at another hearing, that are you compliant? Because I didn't know what the side yard is. I thought there was a side yard issue with the driveway.
That's a good point. There was, and it has been addressed. We've amended our plans, and in our supplemental submission from July 1st, we also included a building inspector's revised determination showing that these plans before you tonight are zoning compliant.
What is but my question, okay, and I appreciate it. What is the setback?
Rich, do you want to go to the zoning compliance chart that we have?
Yeah. The zoning compliance chart, if you can look at it, it's on the cover sheet, Ashley. We have over here the zoning compliance chart, the table of land use on the bottom right.
Can't seem to access that, okay.
Side yard setback. I see side yard setback, but I can't read it. It's just.
I'm trying to zoom in a little bit.
The side yard setback is 20 feet, 45 total. We have 33 on one, 23 and 23 and a half, or 23.4 and 56.3 for the combined each side.
Then I must be looking at the wrong plan. What about the driveway? What's the driveway setback?
There's a 5-foot driveway setback. You see there's a parking setback for rear yard side parking setback of 5 feet there. We have provided that.
Okay, you didn't originally, so that was modified?
That's correct.
Okay, so you now have a 5-foot setback on the driveway, right?
That's correct.
And Commissioner Neufeld, to your point about the wetlands itself, I believe it does stay pretty wet throughout the year. Like I said, the applicant is on the line and can attest to that. But again, we're not proposing any improvements within that area of the property.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I thought somebody was talking about mowing, et cetera, et cetera. I didn't realize.
And also there's a dock. How does a resident of the house get to the dock?
Helicopter.
Walks on water?
We're not proposing any amendments to the dock at this time, and we're proposing to leave that portion of the lawn area exactly how it is. There's no change proposed.
That Ashley just put up a photo of the back of the house right there where you can see the area that's considered wetland.
Right, I got it. It's grassy plants, but it's also intermittently extremely boggy. That means
I have a concern with is there's fill going into wetlands buffer, as well as the FEMA flood zone.
Well, you can't put fill into the wetland. They're not proposing to put any fill in the wetland itself. This is all the constructions in the buffer. My concern is Right now, nobody's using the house and nobody's moving through the wetlands. The wetlands isn't getting use, so it's not getting any abuse. You know, a rebuilt house means that there's hopefully residents who then have a dock that they're going to use and something like a lawn that they're going to maintain, except that the lawn that they're maintaining is also a wetland, which means that they're going to be intermittently running mowers through it. And the dock is an amenity to the house, which they're going to want to use. And so they're going to be moving through the wetland as a lawn. It's both a lawn and a wetland. It makes it very difficult to protect a wetland when the wetland is a lawn and we're letting people use it like it's a lawn.
So the applicant has applied for a wetland permit that's being reviewed by the planning board, but there's no regulated activities proposed in the actual wetland itself besides access, which I'm not aware of that being a regulated activity at this time. We are proposing improvements on the property to substantially improve the wetland, like stormwater management and the plantings.
All right.
Well, generally speaking, you preserve and protect. You don't improve. Because once the trees and the ecological system is altered, that's when things run into trouble that live on land and in the water and in between.
I mean, in this case, it's the preserve would be the lawn condition, right? Because that's the existing condition of the wetland.
Well, it's also the organisms that live in the soil and what that consists of as well.
Got a quick question on the dock, on whatever, that walkway to the dock there. I had two questions. One is it legal at this time? Is it illegally existing, or is it not? And the second thing is, what are the plans? Because you said at this time there's no plans there. At this time could be a term of art where it's today, but it's next week. So
I'm not aware of it.
Is the dock legal existing? Do you know if the dock is legally existing?
I don't. Rich, do you?
I don't. The dock has been there for a number of years. It's in. It was in place when the applicant purchased the home. He has no plans at all to do any of the docks. Anything on the dock. He has pictures of the dock dating back since 1957. So it's been there a long time. They don't plan to do anything with it. Basically, if they were to do anything with it at this time, it's going to be, there's a lot of hoops to jump through that they're not interested in handling. Even removing it would be quite a undertaking and probably do more damage than good.
I think, Martin, you were going to share with us the comparison between, Commissioner Gelber, welcome.
Good evening. Sorry I'm late.
Because for procedural reasons, we rearranged the agenda so that 1165 Grecian was up, and we're just discussing that property now.
Thank you.
Martin, you were going to share with us the comparison.
I can do that now.
Thank you. Tony, just to catch you up, one of there are two versions of Sven's review. The second one, after the applicant apparently explained, or his representatives apparently explained that the trees behind the house were largely going to be preserved. However, in the course of discussing it, we learned that a number of trees that were on the lot in the original application have been removed while the application is pending.
Yep. So the one on the right is the original one that was submitted before, the one on the left. And you can see all of these trees are gone. All these trees are gone. A couple of these trees over here are gone. There's about 30 trees that are gone off of this.
I would like to speak to that. The original survey was dated February 2nd, 2018, February 22nd, 2018. You can look on the sheet that's basically what we have there. There was a couple of trees that have been removed prior to the start of any construction, and there were some trees that were, prior to any application being submitted. And some of them have been removed since. The applicant did not know that he was not able to do that. He would like to apologize. If we can bring him on and speak to that.
I don't know what that does, but you can bring them on.
I mean, a number of these trees were fallen. The survey was from 2 years ago. A lot's happened in 2 years. Some of the trees had to be removed for the gas service to be constructed into the property. A couple of trees had to be removed because they were dead and dying and falling down. And then there were some trees that were taken down just in the terms of maintenance on the site, trying to keep up with the site.
But there was a huge, I can't even read it because it's pretty far away. It seems like a 40-inch tree on the rear of the property outside of the 10-foot. That's it. That's now gone off the survey and gone off the face of the earth. Has that been removed?
That tree has been, it's either fallen down or been removed.
So I'm sorry, I need to return to what I started with when we were in discussing this property was the aerial photograph. What Sven Hoger's review, initial pre-amendment review expressed was the usefulness to the environment of a contiguous canopy of trees. And I said at the start of our review of this evening that was really apparent from the photograph. When is the aerial photograph? Do we know what the date of that photograph is?
Rich, Kristen, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Bill.
Pardon me, this is Bill Fedina, the applicant. I'm sorry, for the last 5 minutes I've been trying to unmute. And I'm a fan, I said this back in May, I just be very candid about what I do. And so, yes, since I bought the house in June of 18, any neighbor would know that I've been basically cutting, mulching, clearing, pruning for the last 2 years, pretty much every other weekend. And yes, so there's no discrepancy, no hiding amongst words. Yes, the survey is 2 years dated, but I have been cutting trees before, and I have cut trees until June. Generally consistently. And the reason, I just did not know. And there's no other way to say it. It's my fault. I am sorry. I didn't know. When Kristen, we got her engaged after the May meeting, because we did it ourselves. I said, shouldn't we re-update the survey to see all the work I've done? And she said, what are you doing? I said, well, I've been cutting trees. She's like, you shouldn't do that. So I said, okay, I will stop. I have done this through June, and I'm literally I don't want us to dance around, even if the survey is older. This is done by me without knowing, and I am sorry. And that is why we are putting a lot more wetland plantings. We're putting everything. So I would just like to be very direct on the matter.
I appreciate that. However, at the last meeting, the trees were one of the major issues that we discussed, preserving the trees. So cutting any trees down after that meeting would have been against anything that we discussed at the last meeting.
As well as the Stormwater Design Manual, Chapter 3, there is no information in our records that we received anything from the applicant.
You guys.
And the first thing you have to do for stormwater, not a system or how you're going to deal with it, is look at the site and evaluate what the site has. And one of the things in Chapter 3 is preservation of natural resources. Delineate and place into permanent conservation easement undisturbed native vegetative areas, riparian corridors, wetlands, natural terrain. Preserve the buffers, define, delineate, and place into permanent conservation easement naturally vegetated buffers along all perennial streams, rivers, shorelines, and wetlands, and limit clearing and grading to the minimum amount needed for roads, driveways, foundations, utilities, and stormwater management facilities. So that's the standard that you start with before you design anything. Looks like we've lost a lot. So I don't know how this could be consistent.
Can I just, I know I got here late, but the house itself, what the plans for the house are, what, to demolish it and rebuild it, or just to renovate it?
To demolish and rebuild.
Okay, so one of the questions I had, if this were a vacant lot at the moment, how would we treat this vacant lot, I guess was one of the things I thought after the last meeting, because I know a lot of the work is in the buffer area. And so if this was a vacant lot and the applicant was in here before us as they are, how would we be evaluating it? And I ask that because it seems to me that putting in a new house here is pretty much is in that scenario. So I don't know. So I guess what parameters would we look at if this was a vacant lot with an application for a new house versus a rebuild or a tear down and a new house? Would there be any distinction?
No, there wouldn't. To construct a new home on a vacant lot, the site would be developed quite similarly. The constraints, the constraints are still, you need the front of the site for the septic area. You need an area for stormwater management. And we're trying to maintain as far away from the wetland as we possibly can. We can't possibly push the house any closer to the road. It won't fit. We can't put a septic system in the wetland. We want to keep that septic system as far from the wetland as we can. The construction of a home, the development of a home is going to be something going to be fairly, the impacts of developing a home are less than the impacts of discharging water into the ground or
Can I ask a question on that point about, I thought about that, moving the house closer to the road, maybe changing the shape of the house, so you can share that front area with the septic system. There's no alternative out there that you thought about or that you could design and show us where you move everything closer to the road so you have more of a backyard and you stay out of the wetland?
We can't move anything closer to the road. To develop a septic system for a fairly modest 3,000, I believe it's a 4-bedroom home, we're looking at 500 linear feet of septic field. We have to provide septic field, and we also have to provide 100% of an expansion area. Once we take that into account, that basically is the whole front yard there past that 100-foot buffer. If we were to take a home and twist it or put something on the side, then we don't meet any of the zoning compliance with side yard setbacks or front yard setbacks or anything else. The site becomes much...
Okay, that's an answer.
What my concern, though, is...
Can I just finish my thought here?
Sorry, Andrew.
On the plan, it calls for 1,600 yards of fill. So at the average triaxle capacity of 20 yards, that's 80 truckloads.
Mm-hmm.
Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
So where are the 80 truckloads going to go, and how high are you going to raise the grade?
The front yard's going to be brought up about 2.5 feet. To maintain separation between rock and groundwater. I mean, rock and the bottom of the absorption fields. And the remainder of it is going to be used to bring the average grade around the house up to elevation 13.1 as per FEMA design guidelines.
And what's the current elevation?
The current elevation is about, in the front of the house is at 11 and 12, and in the back of the house it's at 10.
All right. One of the problems I think you have with the backyard is that it looks like the neighboring properties were filled at some time. They're significantly higher, and just the way the landscape appears, it doesn't look natural. It looks like it's been filled. So if you have high ground to the right of you and the left of you with your neighbors, and then you have higher ground that you've created with the 80 yards of fill in your front yard, that water has no place to go but in that backyard. It's going to be even wetter if if that's what happens. If you raise the grade 2.5 feet and everyone around you is 2.5 or 3 or 4 feet higher, the low spot's going to be the backyard. Is there a solution for that?
Well, it's the same amount of stormwater that's going to fall on that falls on the site today as it's going to fall on the site in the future. So
But it will be impervious surfaces, which is not right now.
yes, there's going to be an additional impervious surface, but if you read through our stormwater management report and our stormwater design manual, what we've actually been able to do is provide a runoff reduction volume. We actually have less water going to the back of the site than is now. We're going to be recycling a good bit of the water, using it for irrigation on site, which is a green practice that's endorsed by the DEC.
Right, but there's still going to be sheet, sorry. There still will be sheet flow off of the elevated surfaces where you're adding fill.
Yes,
And,
but the design is this. The design points are the same. We're not. I understand your thought, and I understand how you're thinking that. But at the same time, the water is currently draining there. We're not changing the drainage divides on the site or the drainage areas.
But you're disturbing it, which is the difference.
Yeah, and
It's a
you're
disturbance.
making a higher area that's going to contribute water to a lower area.
But that water is already going there.
Is it? If it's hot, doesn't water go from high to low? So if you raise the front yard, now that water is going to have a tendency to run to the low area.
That's where it goes now.
Okay. Well, if there's more impervious, more roof, more outdoor area, it's just going to make a bad situation worse. That's up to you, but it's a tough lot. So when I was there, that's the first thing that impressed me. It's a difficult one to build on.
So, Doreen, you had some questions to finish, I think, and I'll let you go before I say anything else.
Well, I don't see much information from our floodplain administrator in our village as to if this complies, or our building inspector, how this complies with our flood zone rules. Because that's
Commissioner-
another couple of policies that our LWRP deals with.
Right.
And I thought I heard, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that it goes up to the 13, the fill is going to be at the 13-foot contour. Is that the raising of the grade that you're doing?
That's correct.
So this, correct me if I'm wrong, entire parcel now and in development in the future is going to be at 13, which is AE 13. Our floodplain rules are +2 above base flood elevation. How are you meeting that?
The house, the lowest structural member of the house is above that. There's going to be steps going up to the house. However, according to the floodplain, the FEMA management guide for construction within a floodplain, they require us to have the elevation of the ground around the house at 13.
And so the applicant has applied for a floodplain variance with the planning board in relation to the proposal for the fill. So the planning board is considering that.
Was there a typo in the information that was submitted?
Hang on, Doreen. I want to make sure that I understand what Ms. Motel just said. You're getting a variance for the no net fill rule?
Correct. The planning board application was submitted on April 3rd or April 30th, the same day as these materials. I believe this board has a copy of that in their April 30th package.
And that's to put net positive fill in a floodplain. Do I have that right?
That's correct.
In a wetland buffer. Also.
Understood, but the only other possible option there to provide any type of compensatory storage is to excavate within the wetland to provide an excess of, take that 1,600 yards out there. And that's not even a good idea, even if you let me do it. We don't want to do that.
I also saw in the materials, correct me if I'm wrong, that in this submission that there would be, you're seeking a wetlands variance?
We're seeking a
Was
permit.
that a typo?
I believe that the Ecological Solutions report may have called it a variance from the DEC requirements, but I believe what was meant to be said was a permit from the DEC for development within the adjacent area.
I thought I read wetlands variance, so that needs to be rectified. If it's true, great. If it's not, that needs to be clarified because I read that in the submission. We can't vary wetlands law.
Is the current septic that's failing, could it be replaced or repaired as is? Does it need to be changed because it's not compliant anymore or because the house is going to be bigger?
It doesn't matter. It has to be constructed in accordance, even if the applicant doesn't do anything with the house. In order for him to do something here, he has to provide it's in failure. So what has to be done is the health department is going to have to come out, do a full evaluation on everything, and you'd have to.
Private sewer line has to use the public sewer line.
But we're not talking about a public sewer line. We're talking about the fact that it's a private road and 5 people have private sewer lines. What would be the difficulty of running a private sewer line to where these other neighbors connect to the public sewer line?
The health department will not allow this. We've already spoken with them about it. If we were to extend a line down there, it would have to be a public line that has to be taken over by the village. It's too long.
Does that mean
because of length? The concern is length?
It's the length. It's all the different people neighboring it.
Does that mean
several of the neighbors have private sewer lines?
Understood. That was approved prior to the newer regulations.
Got it.
Okay.
It's predated all current regulations when that was constructed.
I don't know how many of our fellow commissioners were on our commission at the time, but the Capels were the last people on Grecian that had tried that.
And what happened?
I think they went to their septic.
Yeah, they couldn't get it approved. We've been talking.
Couldn't get it approved.
Exactly.
Now that I recall that.
So there's no parallel variance type path there, like the variance path for net fill related to the septic?
That's correct.
Christie, we had discussed it, and we were going to get a red line that makes the notice provision consistent with the other notice provisions in our code.
So I took a look at what you sent me today. I received it this afternoon. It looks like Greg had already done it for the most part. The problem is that they're not consistent across the board. So it's not like every other board was doing it the same way and HCZM was the only one that wasn't. So everybody's doing it a little bit different, but some of the provisions are the same. And so I took a look at it, but it looks like Greg picked he changed the provisions to match what's most common. So for instance, if 3 of the boards or 3 of the applications are doing 400 feet, he did the same, right? So we can look at it quickly if you want, but it looks like Greg already tackled it in that version that you've sent me.
But the problem at our last meeting when we discussed this was that this is for wetlands permitting. The village clerk, Augie's office, receives the application materials. Once the planning board deems them complete, notification has to go out to involved and interested agencies, and that hasn't been happening. That's what the issue was that was brought up at our last meeting for this issue. As far as notification procedures are concerned, village-wide, this goes along with Article 34 and 36 is floodplains, but it's under New York State environmental conservation law. That is where the notification procedures are derived from. So other agencies, other involved agencies and interested agencies need to be put on notice when the application is complete before a public hearing. That's where we were having a little fuzzy discussion on last meeting. And it wasn't in the draft of the new wetlands law that we put up, and that's why Thomas wanted to, have another look at that.
Okay, then I
Still
apologize.
didn't get to that.
My understanding was to look at the notice provisions to make sure that they're in sync. I believe I just did a quick search of law. I don't see the village clerk reference anywhere. So it looks like Greg possibly took that out. I'd have to look at it again.
All right, well then that's a different to-do item. And as much as it pains me to have this kicked over again, it's also a valid concern that has to, look, is it procedurally wrong to have it right in the law that the village staff has to or the village has to contact involved agencies, or should that be in there, Christy?
I'd have to look. Do you mind if I talk to Doreen about it offline? Is that something that?
Yeah, I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
We can circle back to this as a working group. I'll just do it, me and Doreen, and we'll figure it out.
Three of us?
Unfortunately, I think there's no way to take action on this and finally get this off our plate until the next meeting in September.
If I may, Mr. Chair, is it possible to provide planning staff with a copy of it so planning staff can provide any insight?
Yes. Yes, I'll email it to you tomorrow.
So Doreen, I just want to be clear. Thomas, are you and Doreen going to work on this on your own, or are you going to? Me and
Doreen are going to speak by phone tomorrow. We'll arrange a time and figure out what else needs to go into this. Hopefully it's just a 1-paragraph provision, and then this can be up for a vote the next time we meet.
So Christy, if you look at 192.5, there's a reference to the village clerk.
Sorry, in the new version?
No, in our current version. That's what we're talking about.
So so what I'm saying is I did a quick search of the new one and I don't see reference to the village clerk in there. So I think Greg took that out.
Okay, now that's clear for me. Thanks.
Maybe needs to go back in. Okay.
Yes.
All right. I had asked a working group to deal with the new application. Seamus, I thank you for sending that. I got that today. I don't know if everybody's had a chance to look at that though, because that was late.
Well, I only sent it to you. Maybe I'll just report briefly back from our working group. I could share my screen and show people for a minute or less if we wanted to.
Thank you.
We'll decide that in a minute, maybe. So
I have to give you a lot of credit, Seamus, because I was on vacation and could not contribute much. You did a good job.
Well, I wasn't gonna. I think Doreen, you're always helpful, and there is a little bit more to do with you probably. But anyway, Betty Ann and Doreen and I have worked through the updated application. So I think there were 2 precedents. One was something that was approved back in maybe 2008, but never enacted, I believe. And then there's the one we're currently working off of. So Betty Ann and I went through that and kind of consolidated similar information into certain places. There was some duplications. There was it was kind of a little disorganized, probably from being put together over the years. So we've done that. We added in things that we always tend to ask for. So for example, there's now a section where it says, do you need something from DEC? Do you need something from SHPO? Do you need something from Army Corps of Engineers? Do you need something from anyone else? And if you do, tell us what it is and attach it. So I think from my last year or so on this commission, our sort of standard things that we're looking for are now in this application. We organized it into sections. There's going to be more of an instructions page for the applicant. So what we get is really just the info that we need without a lot of words in the middle telling people how to use it. So as far as function, I think we've improved it. As far as content, I think we've improved it. I can put it up on the screen if that's helpful, but what might be even better is let me finish up with talking with Doreen and incorporating a few things on the harbor management plan, and then circulate it to this whole group and can take any other comments in the meantime. But I think we made a lot of progress. I think it's going to be a much, much better application, and I think it's not going to take long I would think we could hopefully have something approved by our next meeting, even if it was only a month from now, given that it's 2 months, I think no problem. I have one question, which if we can deal with briefly, and please, if anyone has questions or reactions, I'm just trying to be brief given the time of night. The one question I have, and I don't know if Christy can answer this or if no one can answer it or if it's up for debate, is does this form need to exist in a way that it can be printed out and filled out? Or can it just, because right now it's set up, you know, to be fillable online, you click and you type in. So that's just one thing. In order to get a real final form, I think we'll need to know, just blocking and tackling here, what it needs to look like in order for people to fill it out. And you're on mute.
Sorry. Betty Ann, I don't know if you have any input, and I mean, I don't necessarily have a legal standard for this, but I would imagine that you should make the form accessible in all methods.
Right.
So electronically, paper, that way that you're not limiting any accessibility.
Correct.
So the two things about that. The first question is, the one thing, in terms of somebody submitting an online application, and they fill it out, the question becomes, from a legal standpoint, is if a property owner fills out the application, can it be accepted electronically with an electronic signature? Does that stand for the person? That's really the question. And I don't know the answer to
For
that.
an electronic submission, we're looking for a form that they can fill out online.
Fair enough, but usually when you submit an application, it comes with somebody's signature, a property owner's signature. So the question is, can the village accept an application, I guess either without the online signature or with an online signature, however that works. But that's really a legal question. I think, go ahead, please, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And can you guys see my screen now?
Yes.
So as you can see right now, you just like click into this and start typing. And so that works very well. Now, if you wanted to actually print this and fill it out, as you can see, as you're looking at this, you need more space. That's just, we just need to know what to do and then we'll do it.
Like I said, I would make it as accessible as possible. And to answer William's question, I don't see a problem with accepting electronic signatures unless there was something in our code that said it has to be an original. I don't see an issue with accepting electronic.
In some cases, things need to be notarized. So
Yeah.
not our
That's true.
application, but
Yeah, I don't know if this form would be one of those though.
And then what, you know, I'll just, as I slide down this, I'll show people just so that when they see it, they'll have a sense. So section B, we kind of made them into sections. It's just everything that you need to know about the application, proposed activity. And then here's this section D that I think will be very useful to us. You know, have you had a secret determination? If so, what? Here are all the, you know, people that you might need from. So, and just to point out, you got the coastal assessment form. What we've done at the end is I still did set it up so that you could fill it all out online and then print it and sign last little bit. It sounds like what I'm hearing is there's just a little bit of work to do to this to make sure that if you just printed it and started writing it in it with a pen, there's enough space. So that's the update from here. Let me know if there's any other questions. Otherwise, I think it's a much better form. I think it'll be really good, and we'll get over the finish line and get in front of everyone for their comments.
Seamus, that is just terrific. Thank you.
you really did a good job with the technology. What I'd like to do, Seamus, I guess we'll work offline too. The Department of State has an application and the consistency law. Betty Ann put that on the LWRP update link on our agenda. There are things on that tie into specific LWRP items. So maybe, I don't want to make the application longer, but it's the information that we need to go against the policies of our LWRP.
We should look at that.
Yeah, we'll add it. So I'll get your comments generally, Doreen, and I'll send this, like I've said a few times, I'll send this around to everybody. I think the goal here is there are consistently things that we ask for that aren't in the application. Let's rectify that. And I think we can do that, and we can get it finalized by going into the September meeting.
Agreed. Great work.
I think another way to do it so that you don't make the application any longer, considering it is, I think, 4 pages already, is you can and staff can do this, is to create checklists. So the applicants are not only getting the applications, or the application is what it is, but the applicants are also getting checklists. And the applicants can then just run down the checklist to make sure that they have everything. I think that's another thing. The other thing I was talking to Betty Ann about was looking at all of the boards, their rules and procedures, and making any changes so that, you know, the rules and procedures clearly identify the items that the board needs in order for the board to be able to deliberate in a timely manner.
Yeah.
Mr. Long, point well taken. The last time we did a revision of this of the 2008 version, the Board of Trustees actually has to review and approve whatever we do. Rules and procedures should be looked at too. I agree.
Okay. Fair enough.
And I like that suggestion, William. Our concept here to try to streamline things so that the people that need to look at items only have to look at the items they need is we'll have this application, which is really just the hardcore info that we need. And then we're going to have an instruction sheet, which we never see for the applicant. So they can say, oh, section A, here's what I need to do. Section B, here's what I need to do. But then we were going to have a checklist and keep it separate. It used to be in the application. We can debate it. I'll send it around to this group. But I would think if that's a separate document, we can always see it. But at least the applicant has it to make sure that whatever they need to provide, they can check the box and submit that separately. So
actually, the reason why we had a checklist, this is what we did to the application in 2014 or 15, I can't remember exactly, is staff was supposed to check the application and the materials to make sure it was complete. Because right now we get applications with the checklist filled out and we don't have the materials. And it's a constant next meeting.
Well, now at least we'll be able to go to this section and, you know, we'll have some real information in front of us in writing. And we'll say, okay, you've said this is what you need. We agree with it or we don't. We can have that discussion. And then if they've said they need it, we can say, do we have it? Right. So I think it'll be, let's make it as good as we can if there are other ideas. But this to me, I think it gets some of this information in writing that we weren't getting before, that we were just getting verbally. And sometimes that we were getting verbally 3 or 4 times if people come to the commission 3 or 4 times.
Fair enough. So just so you know, this is my 3rd day, you know, on the job. And I think where my focus is right now is really trying to make your processes as efficient as possible. And then after that happens, then I'll get into making sure that when applications come in, that they are deemed technically complete before they are put on your agenda. So that avoids all of this confusion about they're telling you that they've submitted something and it's either not there, it's upside down, it's backwards, something that should be on the left is actually on the right, that kind of stuff. Staff will rectify all of that.
So William,
running.
The next phase here, maybe we can get you involved with Doreen and Betty Ann and I on maybe particularly on the checklist, which I'm thinking of a piece of the trifecta here, the instructions, the checklist, and this application, because that'd be great.
If I may as well, it might be good to look at from a legal standpoint too, not necessarily the legality of the form, but just, you know, double check against the code.
Absolutely.
Please. I have a quick comment to Seamus. So, you know, what in my short time on this committee so far, the thing that's been interesting to me is exactly what this says, is that it's the applicant's obligation to determine whether they need these permits. And I think you know, oftentimes they've seen them come to us and not know which permits they need for what different things. So that in itself presents its own problem for us in some ways. So is there any way to prevent that by maybe the planning board, or when they submit the application, to tell them what permits they need?
But if I may, I thought that's what they call it, the plan examiner's report or the zoning officer's report, but the plan examiner's report typically indicates what permits are supposed to be needed and that kind of thing. So are you saying that there's a situation where I guess the plan examiner's reports are not listing all of the permits that are required? I'm just trying to get an understanding of
or maybe, William, maybe that we're not seeing them, Martin. I don't know that I always see anything, at least that's very organized on outside agencies. And I think this might be a start here, but maybe with the checklist, and I agree, William. I think you hit it right on the nose, which is let's just try to streamline the process elements of this so that, you know, our meetings can really be on the, you know, on the application of the policies, consistency, and everything that we're really.
Right. Not every
Yeah,
applicant has a Doreen in their pocket that knows, like,
Uh-oh.
you know, every.
No, well, if you go to all these agencies' websites, they tell you if you're working in water.
Oh no, I know that. I'm just saying that you know.
No, but you know, as early as possible, you know, like from the beginning.
On the instruction sheet, we put links to all of those agencies.
Right.
So many things that you always bring up, Doreen, were things that Seamus and I were very mindful of in making sure we included those links.
Right.
Because it's better to have the applicant more informed and look into these things in the very beginning than get to the commission and then realize that they need to go to Army Corps or
Right.
some other agency.
Yeah, that's my point, Betty. I think.
And Mr. Long hit the nail on the head. The planning review, or the review of the application and the materials, that's key, because that's where a person can be directed that, you know, you need to seek out information from this agency, so on and so forth.
Right, but Doreen, I think you have to be careful here, and William also, that I think the onus has to be on the applicant to determine whether they need a permit or not. Because if you put the onus on the admin staff, it just makes it too risky for them and too much work, right? So I think if in the checklist we have that they have to get either the permit or, Doreen, you always use the word a letter of no effect or something like that, right?
Jurisdictional determination.
Right, yours, right. So to me, in the application, we have to be very clear that the applicant has to either get the permits from all these agencies or this letter of jurisdictional determination that says they don't need it. And then Betty Ann, you can check if they have the thing checked off, you know, that they don't need it. Well, we can challenge them when we do get it, but I don't think that the village staff should have to determine whether they need a permit or not, because that can take months, right?
Not really. The Army Corps of Engineers puts out a picture diagram of the types of permits that are necessary. The DEC is a little bit trickier. What's missing from here is Office of General Services, you know, because in some cases with underwater land grants, you need to contact them.
Right.
But we'll talk. We'll talk.
Yeah,
This is offline in the weeds.
Yeah,
right.
Let's get the list right. But Tony, you'll see it. You know, this language, which we did tweak a little bit, really is it's the applicant's obligation. And then if you look, and this is a little different, we say, hey, tell us which agency are involved and in what capacity, or if they're not, why they're not. So I hope we get some good answers in this section. And again, I agree that really the next step is for our working group to finish this and to put it all in front of you guys, and you can read a couple pages and provide additional comments.
Right.
And
Guys,
I
I got-
apologize. I just wasn't available in the time frame because I've been running around enjoying a vacation.
Understood. We're all volunteers. Tony, I understand you've got to
I
sign
gotta cut
off.
out. Have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you. We're just gonna knock down the last few discussion items. Thank you, Tony. We're gonna knock down a couple of discussion items here. We've got the debris net on the Mamaroneck River. We received communication from one of our concerned citizens. I don't know what we want to say about this. I don't know much about that debris net or why it is no longer maintained. Martin?
Are you talking about the new one that was put up to catch the gasoline spill?
The boom.
Yeah, the boom. Yeah. So what I know of it is just what was sent to me through Gina Van F. And she basically just said that she just reported the problem, but didn't really give any specifics about what the cause was and she was mentioning that there were breaks in the boom, that the collection of the gasoline spill was leaking through, but there was no testing done. So I said, save the sound. We're actually going to go out and do some sample testing on site. So that's all the information I can give you on that so far. But I can follow.
Martin, there's a history to this problem. We've had that white foam coming down the river for at least 7 years.
For at least 7 years, yeah. I live on
the village did do testing. There was an illicit discharge that was dealt with, but I actually called the DEC a couple of years ago because it looked like soap suds were coming out of the Sheldrake River.
Yeah.
And if the oil spill was in the Mamaroneck River, why is the boom on the Sheldrake?
I didn't say it was on the Mamaroneck River. I said that there was a spill.
Right, but there was a spill on the Mamaroneck River, but the boom is on the Sheldrake River.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that specific.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
So, all right. I mean, it's been reported to us though, so we should at least be able to figure out from somebody what's going on.
Yeah, I think she sent it far and wide because I got it up through the CFTE as well, and my work at Save the Sound, and through Harbor Coastal Zone. So I think she just blasted everybody.
So.
All right, yeah, I got it.
And
So
also, there was a debris net farther down by the Boston Post Road Bridge that the village was maintaining that was there to catch leaves and sticks.
Right.
That's no longer there, and that was what that was another concerned complaint. If we can maybe write a letter to the acting harbor master and the I guess acting village manager, Mr. Sarnoff, and just to find out whatever happened to that, and if that could be replaced. Is that something we can do?
And Betty Ann, will you write this letter that he's referring to?
just asking for an explanation on the history of the debris net, when it was taken down, why, and whether it would be appropriate to return it. Because if it's just that, Public Works thought maybe we'd be better off without it because of the reduced load, maybe that's something they should revisit.
Maybe it ripped to shreds and it's costly to replace.
Yeah, I think it got ripped to shreds from the storms that happened because that's where all the flow goes out.
Okay.
They used to have one right on the Tompkins Avenue Bridge as well. This is right behind my house that we're talking about.
Yeah.
So they had one on the Tompkins Avenue Bridge as well, and that one got torn up in a storm, and then they just took it out and never replaced it.
Okay. All right. So that's a letter. That's the action plan on that. Sediment issue. Andrew, this was your issue. Sediment in the harbor.
Right. This kind of came from the same complainant as the debris net, and it seems that where that debris net used to be, there's a lot of leaves. There's a lot of bottom accretion along that town dock, and again, that's another issue for the harbor minister. But it would be nice just to have someone survey that or keep tabs on that, because at low tide, from what I understand, there's only about 3 feet of water. It interferes with some of the marina activities there. And I know that's a big undertaking to have that dredged, but maybe we can find out exactly what's going on there, if there's other solutions, and if there's a dredging plan, because that particular part, while other areas of the harbor are deep, that one seems to be filling very quickly because everything's coming down from the river and filling in that bottom area right where the Mamaroneck River empties into the harbor. So that would probably be another, that could be included in the letter to the acting harbor master and the village manager.
Andrew, is this past the Boston Post Road Bridge into the marina right there?
Yeah, and the town dock.
Okay, the town dock.
The village dock.
You're talking about the area where the bait shop is and where the boat ramp is?
Yes, behind the bait shop, exactly.
In that general area. Okay, because the town dock's somewhere else.
Yeah, no, I misspoke.
Yeah, it's right where the boat works are and stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
Large ship channel. Andrew, also your issue.
Yeah, that was an issue that that came to our attention a while ago. Directors bringing in larger and larger vessels. It's hard for them to make that corner. That they now have to travel down towards that bait shop and make that hard right angle turn to get to Directors. And I was doing some research on that. And what they want to do is have a more direct diagonal channel through the mooring field. And I thought that was something that would require it would require rearranging the mooring field. But from what I understand now is that the channel was originally on that diagonal. So if anyone has any history, again, if the village manager or the harbor master, if that could be included as well. That was a request that was made, and it just kind of flamed out. And I just don't want to get into a habit of just not addressing things. So we can.
I think that's
history
being
on that.
handled by the village manager.
That is being handled?
Yeah, that I'm pretty sure they came to a conclusion with Directors. I honestly, I can't remember because it was several months ago, but I know that the village manager is aware of this and was handling it.
So can we just get an update on what
Yeah,
happened?
it's a harbor issue, so if we could just get an update.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So is there a channel there? There's an existing channel that can't be utilized because of moorings? Is that what it is?
The mooring field was moved and blocked that channel. And the channel now, which from what I understand is the federal channel, goes along the seawall there by the boat ramp to the bait store, and then makes a hard angle turn.
Right,
And it's
but
very
Andrew, the question I have is there a channel through the mooring field? In other words, does a channel need to be made through the mooring field, or does one exist?
When you say channel, you're referring to the bottom, or are you just referring to a clear path of water?
Both.
There's sufficient, from what I understand, there's sufficient depth of water there.
Okay.
But the boats, there are now more boats moored in the channel, so there's no clear path of water.
Okay, understood, thanks.
No problem.
Okay, and our last agenda item was pump out boat.
Right, so there was a pump out boat in the village of Mamaroneck. Basically what that does is that goes around as a convenience to the various boats that have a sanitary system, basically a toilet and a holding tank for the refuse on board. And this boat would go around as a service to those boats. There is a pump out, there are two pump out docks, one in the East Basin, one in the West Basin. The one in the West Basin works well. The one in the East Basin, from what I understand, doesn't work well. So if you didn't go to the docks, this pump out boat would come to you. It's left. This pump out boat is no longer servicing the harbor. And the issue is now that there's an incentive for people to illegally discharge this stuff into the harbor. So in the interest of clean water and a clean harbor, and again, it should be in that letter to the harbor. What happened to that boat? Why? Oh, it left because the village wanted to charge the operator rent. And, I'd like some background on how did that occur, and where did this boat go? Because the discharge is below the water line. So even though it's illegal, there's an incentive now for people not to deal with the one broken pump out dock in the East Basin, who maybe they will going to the West Basin's too inconvenient, and it's easier for them just to discharge under the water, which can be done very very discreetly. So, I would just like to know what happened to and I remember seeing the pump out boat on the dock for a long time. What happened? Can we get it back? Just what transpired.
Who made the decision to start to charge them rent, and where did that decision come?
I think that was a village manager. That's what I'm hearing. I don't know, but I'm hearing that there was the village manager wanted to charge rent rather than paying rent. The boat left our harbor and refuses to come back and service any boats.
When you say rent, do you mean that they were charging them for, I believe there's like a fee for for the boat, like docking their boat or
slip.
something. Is that
Yeah.
what you're referring to?
A slip fee?
Yeah, a dockage.
Yes, the
dockage-
slip fee. I think there was, right?
Yeah, slip fee, dockage fee, however you want to phrase it.
Yeah, so I think there was some reassessment of those fees. Again, it's probably something that the village manager can better answer, but that's the very minimal insight that I have on it.
So what I don't understand is this is an issue that is definitely under our jurisdiction, and why these matters aren't coming before us. I mean, if you read the code, what we're
Sorry?
responsible for.
Your question is, why did the matter not come before you? Is it possible that, again, someone was doing something and, again, it's in violation, they didn't file for anything formally? And therefore.
No, what I'm saying is decisions are being made without our ability to understand the situation and weigh in on why it's essential, like Andrew just spoke about. People can illegally discharge right into the sound, and that's pumping a lot of nitrogen in that water.
But I think,
And it provides a vital service that, the fee for the slip is probably offset tenfold by the service that they're providing to the environment.
so I'm sure the village manager would be happy to comment on it and the status and why it was done. In terms of jurisdiction, I don't know the answer to that right now, because I know the harbor master would be the one that's responsible for those slips. So how that interplays with HCCM is probably a little bit complicated in that sense. But again, I think just for historical background, village manager is your best resource to at least start that conversation.
Okay, I think we've run our agenda items, and I don't think any of us will be sorry to be done. Can I get a motion?
Can I just make one
Hold on,
point of clarification?
Christy wants my attention for one last thing.
The tree law was added to your agenda.
Thank
So
you.
the only reason I bring that up, and I think it's something you can address in September, I believe the public hearing right now is set for September, I think it's 29th.
29th, yes.
So you'll meet before then, but just keep in mind that you probably should be prepared to have your comments ready for that September 29th date for your next, or excuse me, have your comments ready before then at your next meeting so that you're prepared to comment on it for their public hearing.
Okay, folks, we have a lot on that is not application focused that we've got to get done in September. So, at the end of August, let's just all remember, and maybe I'll just ping everybody by email. Let's all remember to circle back to the stuff that's in our to-do list and make sure that we know what we're going to say, we know what we're thinking about, we've made our comments, we've reviewed our drafts for LWRP, wetlands law, application, and the tree law.
And Tom, one last point. Can I just make one point of clarification?
Yeah, go ahead, Andrew.
On that river wall, the homeowner did file a permit, but it was only after Mr. Teekert filed a complaint with the building department. So that I got that chronology wrong. There was a complaint, and then there was the filing of a building permit.
Yeah, I want to understand how it was the building department looked at that and thought, oh, all right.
I can comment historically that there was a wall there previously that got washed out in the 2007 flood.
It was so they treated it as an in-kind in place replacement.
Maybe I don't know. That's what I said.
Okay, that sounds a lot better.
It's still entitled wetlands, so whatever. I have a question.
I'm not saying it was handled properly or anything. I'm just saying that.
No, but it doesn't rise to the level of shocking if they said, well, there was one there before. It doesn't mean it's right, but it's less shocking.
I have a question on the tree law.
Okay.
There's a public hearing on the 29th.
Yes.
We only received the law. We have not received the application materials because we should be reviewing this.
I don't believe, no, it's a type 2.
How's it a type 2 action?
It is a type 2. It's, let's see, continuing administration. Let me find the resolution.
It's legislation, which is a type 1 action.
Hold on. Well, then every single law that the board passes would be a type
Right.
1.
That's
No,
right.
so I'd have to look at that because I don't think that's accurate. But
But
let
in
me-
any case, we don't have
Okay.
complete application materials, and I appreciate receiving the law now so we can get through it because it's pretty intense.
All right. And
Mr. Chair, I have two quick things that I just want to bring to the board's attention, just really quick. First thing, I want to just fill out the board. How does the board feel about possibly having a work session prior to your formal public meeting? And the work session would be a situation where you all as the board can talk. You can talk to staff. Staff can talk to you at the work session. And then, you would have your public meeting, and at least you all would have had an understanding of what's on the agenda. And again, no decisions to be made, but just to be able to have an informal conversation with staff about whatever's on the agenda. How would the board feel about that?
Well, the chair and vice chair talked to the staff several days ahead to make sure that we know what's up and what items are ready for the agenda. So if
Fair enough. But what I have found in my experience is that part works. But then when there is a work session amongst all of the board members have a chance to be able to talk, amongst yourselves. Again, it's a public meeting. The public can watch. The public can't participate. The applicants don't participate. And I think some of these questions and so forth that you were asking and going back and forth with, I think would actually make your public meetings, your public hearings move a little quicker. Just a suggestion.
That's a good point.
It would be open to the public though, right?
Absolutely. But the public can't participate and the applicants can't participate. So what'll happen is some of the questions that you were asking, like about the trees and the additional information that you need, you would state those things at your work session. If the applicant is, I'll use this term, if the applicant is participating or watching rather, then what they would do is they'd be taking notes about the things that you're asking about, and they should come to your meeting, your public hearing, prepared to discuss them, as opposed to you at the public hearing telling them, listen, we got a laundry list of things we want you to address. It gives the applicant a chance to address them beforehand. It's just a suggestion. You don't have to answer tonight, but that's just a suggestion.
Mr. Long, you raise a good point because we have a preliminary review portion of our consistency law. And I don't know how everybody else feels about it, but that could work for a preliminary review on applications.
Fair enough.
I was going to suggest something like that at least one time, because it just seems like we have a lot of stuff building up, but we get into the applications and, that's our primary work, perhaps, to get the neighbors in the village projects progressing. I was going to suggest, especially now with a 2-month break coming up, to try maybe a work session where we deal with everything but applications. And that's a little different, I think, William, than what you're saying, but we could try to clear a lot of that away, and then maybe do a hybrid and see if it's something we wanted to continue. But I'm open to it for sure.
Fair enough. And then the other question I have for you all as board members, when the whole COVID situation came about, everybody started going online and having applications submitted online, and so you weren't getting paper copies of the plans and of drawings and of all the background material. How are you able to, I guess, some of those plans can be rather large. How are you able to, trying to think of how to say it, to have the plans in hand and still be able, and again, I'm not asking this to insult. I'm asking this because I'm trying to make sure that we as staff are servicing you properly. So are you able to have the plan, let me just say it. Are you able to follow along without having the hard copy of the plans in front of you and while the applicant is having the public hearing?
The hard copy of the plans for me are always better because you can see a lot more than you can on an online version.
I don't see the negative. I wouldn't see the negative to not have it. And why wouldn't I have them? In other words, I think even if you're familiar with them, it's helpful. Somebody if illustrating something or discussing something.
I find that I have a preference for having all the other written stuff, the letters and the reports, I can read in electronic form just fine, but I do find the full-size plans helpful. I can follow without them, but it's better to have them full-sized.
I agree with the chair completely that the letters and stuff are easy electronically, but the plans themselves, like when I tried to set up the two side by side, I mean, it's difficult because you know.
Fair enough. I have two monitors, and so that makes it a little easier for me. But nonetheless, I didn't think most board members had that. I'll discuss that with Betty Ann tomorrow and see how we can, I guess, better accommodate you.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I think we have managed to run through all our agenda items. You're all volunteers. I really appreciate the work everybody here has put in. Thank you, everyone. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Have a good
Thank
night,
you very
folks.
much.